Oak Meadow, first grade syllabus, Waldorf curriculum. What have we loved about it? This absolutely beautiful, artistic, gentle curriculum. And then what are some of the things that haven't quite worked for our household? Okay, this is an older version. I got it off Facebook Marketplace. Teacher's manual and the primary book. It's easy to follow along. It's very well laid out. Yeah, it's nice and easy and gentle. So let's start with what we have loved about it. I love that with Waldorf, there's not a lot of pressure to push your kids to these academic standards and levels. Like I said, it's very gentle. It's very much so about beauty and inhale and exhale, a nice gentle rhythm and flow. And what I've loved is that it's very big into learning things that have to do with everyday life. So there's been several math lessons, for example, where you're introducing adding and subtracting, or even skip counting or multiplying while you're putting laundry away, while you're dealing with pairs of socks, or while you're going on a walk, doing some hopscotch and movement that way, or while you're baking with mom in the kitchen. How are we using cups and measurement? For social studies, I don't know if that would also count as science. I think it's social studies, learning how to use a compass. I am directionally impaired. My kindergarten in grade 1, I think mostly because of Waldorf, my kids know how to make navigate with a compass, north, south, east, and west way better than I do. So it's been kind of neat to look at these really practical everyday life things and how it's woven into the curriculum. I love that. It's not just some theoretical curriculum, and I think we're gonna appreciate that the older that the boys get. So I'll show you some super cute things in here, how we introduce letters. Again, arts and stories. So there's the letter D, some other really pretty letters in here. A and V, how cute is that? You're gonna tell a story, and then your children or child is gonna actually draw their own pictures. So language arts was very gentle. Introduction. But there's no worksheets, which I think is great and also can be a little bit tricky. So you're gonna have a main lesson book. And I've seen a lot of people actually make their own main lesson books for their little kids. That was just too much work for me, so we bought one. But essentially, instead of having worksheets, if you're doing other programs like The Good and the Beautiful or Math UC, with Waldorf, your child is actually making their own workbook. So that was V, and the story was about a valley. This was S with snakes. Oh, just on the topic of workbooks, the Waldorf block crayons, block beeswax crayons. So that's been kind of fun, teaching the kids how to work with these block beeswax crayons. I've just found there's been kind of a steep learning curve for me in terms of main lesson book, beeswax crayons. Even doing something like form drawing, unless you've had a Waldorf education, I don't think these are very conventional things. So I haven't loved the learning curve I've had to go through. But hey, that's okay. We got kindergarten in grade 1 down. We're gonna keep going with it because it is so beautiful. So with language arts, you're introducing different word families. And I also made up stories to go with it. So the SH is the shark, and then there was a mermaid and her name ended in SH. What other word families did we write about in here? The double O's. So as much as we used the Waldorf book as a guide, there was a lot where I just kind of went with it in terms of making up my own stories. So math, this is my favorite. Talking about how we had to do some real life stuff, one of the tasks was tracking a temperature every morning. So an introduction to graphing, you can see we've had a few boo-boos, but the boys would actually learn how to read a thermometer. Is that what it's called? Yeah, temperature thermometer, and track it on a sheet of paper. So we're not yet done. The other thing is the introduction to the math kingdom. There are stories in there all about the different math gnomes in the math kingdom. So you have Mr. Plus, Mrs. Minus with a hole in her pocket. She's always dropping things. Mr. Multiply, Mrs. Divide, Empress Equal. So one thing we did that the boys really, really bought into was make little puppets. And then it was like I was doing a puppet show with them while teaching them a math class. Of course, the character they loved best of all was Mr. Multiply. So we had a little poem for him. Mr. Multiply is quick and able, he gathers with great speed. Handfuls at a time he gets, his bounty multiplies indeed. So I found some of these ideas as well off of Pinterest and off of Etsy. One of the things in the grade 1 syllabus was skip counting by 5s. How beautiful is that? So 1 times 5 is 5. Or sorry, 5 times 2 is 10, 5 times 3 is 15. So it's a beautiful flower Samson filled out and we put on the wall. And this was the 10. So that was a PDF I got off of Etsy. It goes through all the multiplication tables, but at this age, it was just 2s, 5s, and 10s. And again, we had that character of Mr. Multiply. And the boys just went nuts for this. So some supplementary stuff I added in was doing something like this, finding a chart going 0 to 100. So this wasn't part of the curriculum. And it's a pattern. Use a yellow crayon to color all the boxes. When you count by 5s, and blue when you count by 10. So just some different ways of showing them what they're doing. And we have added in some worksheets such as that because I personally find it challenging that it's always writing into the main lesson book, and sometimes my boys don't want to. Sometimes they're like, oh, there's a blank piece of paper. I have to now beautify this. That's a lot of effort, mama. And it's not always nice to push them. So I do have some worksheets I've added in. And they've actually really enjoyed doing work with flashcards, you know, talking about Miss Minus or whatever. We have Mr. Plus that we do just small flashcards for numbers under 20. And they've loved doing some flashcard stuff, which is not in the curriculum. Another beautiful thing for math, which I have loved, and this actually wasn't in grade 1, but I found it off Pinterest just because we were doing the skip counting. They made their own skip counting wheel with their own hammer and nails, and then I'll show you how it works. Again, it was just combining geometry and art with skip counting. So if you go around the circle, for the 4 times tables, you're gonna get a shape. When you take that string and you move it around the nails, different numbers make different shapes. So it'd be, for your 5 times tables, 0, 5. Every time you go around the circle, you put a 0. So 0, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50. So the 5 times tables is just a string. The 2s looks like this. So it was really, really fun for my little guy. I know that would probably be introduced in 2nd or 3rd grade, but he absolutely loved playing around with that now and making his own wheel. All right, what else did I want to talk about? Yeah, I think it's a nice, gentle program. It's beautiful. Lots of stories talking about the vowels with these little vowel angels. So it talks about it in the book. And again, then just going on Pinterest, there are so many gorgeous work samples. I wish I was more artistic. You see all of these actual Waldorf teachers or homeschool parents do these elaborate pieces of chalk work. This is about as tapped out as I am. This is what I can do. But then I just made up my own song to go with this. So yeah, music plus art, 4 language arts. It's been a great program. But I could see that next year, especially as we're getting into grade 2, I might pull in more resources from other programs just to make it easier on me. Like I said, a few worksheets here, a few worksheets there to make it easier on me and just add a little bit more structure that it's not always just throwing it into the main lesson book. But yeah, there you have it. We have loved kindergarten, Oak Meadow program, or just a whole Waldorf inspiration. So far, loving grade 1, and I do have Oak Meadow for grade 2. So we are planning on continuing with it as our main inspiration. Okay, all the best with your homeschooling.